What if your team did more than just meet deadlines? What if they felt invested in your personal success? How would that change your business and your organization? As business owners and leaders, it's easy for us to get hyper-focused on those missed key performance indicators and metrics. And when people begin to feel like they're being used for an end game, they start to check out. So in this episode, we're going to talk about how to flip, get this done by Friday, to how can I support you to get this completed. So if you're ready to move beyond mere accountability and ignite the true ownership mindset, stay tuned. Hey everyone, John here. 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 Welcome to the Leaders Leading Leaders podcast. Hey everyone, John here. Welcome to today's episode. Today, we're going to look at accountability and why in business and in leadership, accountability merely isn't enough. We also have to have that ownership mindset. When we think about accountability, we think about external checks. We think about deadlines. And when I say the word ownership, a lot of things come to mind around internal drive. We have a personal stake in the business, in the project, whatever we're working on. And it's two distinct mindsets. So today we're going to talk about why accountability leads to compliance and not commitment. The first thing that we have to do when we talk about accountability and ownership is we have to understand the gap. The gap between the two, what they both look like, what they both sound like, and how you behave as a leader or as a business owner when you want to invoke ownership and not just accountability. We mentioned earlier that accountability is knowing what to do and then being held responsible. Ownership, though, is filling that personal stake. And as business owners, as entrepreneurs, you have a sense of ownership to your business. It's your baby. You know, it's one of those things where I can call my baby ugly, but don't be calling anybody else that calls them ugly. That's when we're going to throw down. And that's what ownership means. You have that personal stake, that vested interest, and ownership leads to proactive problem solving. So for us as business owners and leaders to instill a sense of ownership in our employees within our team is an important part to sustaining our dreams, our business. And it's a big part of why businesses fail. When people feel as if they're being used just as pawns in a game of chess, in the game of business, they may stay for a little bit, but they're not going to stay for long. And are they going to put in those extra hours? Put yourself in their shoes. If you come to the office every day, if you come to work every day, and you feel as if you just got to produce as many widgets as you possibly can, and you're not getting rewarded, you're not getting recognized. In fact, if you don't produce X number of widgets, you're getting criticized. What does that say about the type of culture and work environment that you want to create? So a couple things here that can help us understand this gap between accountability and ownership is reframing our key performance indicators or our metrics as goals with a purpose. And I like to do this whenever we're creating strategic plans and we begin to start breaking down those milestones, because you can always trace back to the bigger mission and vision of the organization. And this helps people feel a bigger sense of what's going on, a sense of we're moving towards a direction. This is the vision of the organization, and this particular metric helps us meet that end goal. It turns into more of a, this is why it's important to produce X number of widgets or makes X number of sales calls or go out and recruit X number of individuals. It's less about meeting the metric and more about why it's important to get it done to meet the mission and vision of the organization. It's a little bit of a flip, and it allows people, again, to feel that sense of ownership into that particular metric, into that particular key performance indicator. Another way that I like to help leaders and business owners understand this gap is to celebrate initiatives, not just the result. So when somebody comes to you with an idea, it could be, hey, I got this idea about changing a process, or I have this idea about a current process that we have, and I think it may make it better. That's your opportunity to sit back and to ask questions, to be curious, to be an active listener. And a lot of times, ideas are brought to us, and we may see flaws in them, and we begin to criticize. We begin to start poking holes in their idea. Well, again, if you were to bring an idea to a business owner, to a bank, to an investor, and they immediately begin to shoot holes in that idea, how would you feel? That's the exact same place that somebody within your team, within your organization, within your business has an idea of how to make your business, the team better, and you're telling me that you're going to shoot holes in their idea. No, you're going to celebrate them bringing you that initiative, and then we're going to sit down and we're going to discuss what that looks like, and we're going to help them think through that. So those are two ways to understand that gap between accountability and ownership. The first one, reframing those KPIs as goal with a purpose, and then celebrating initiative, not results. The second topic we're going to talk about today is speaking the language of ownership. It's walking the talk, and people will do as you do, not necessarily as you say, but it starts with what you say. You follow it up with how you behave. There are words that we use every single day in our vocabulary, and sometimes we don't even recognize how they're being interpreted. Words like must, words like should, those invoke external pressures, versus words like we and words like how invoke a collaborative environment, a collaborative culture. And again, a lot of times we don't recognize this as business owners, and people will pick them up. Those subtle little tips, those subtle little words that we use in our everyday conversations. Next time, recognize when you're in a conversation with somebody and you use the word must or you use the word should, look at their reaction versus a how or a we. So a couple applications that I like to teach here, and I like, leaders to really dig into, because how we talk is hard to change. It needs to start, though, how we think. And from here, it's how can we tackle this together? Whatever the challenge, whatever the problem is that we're currently facing, how can we together tackle this problem? And then sit back, stay curious, and allow them to bring the solutions to you. Another technique that I like to use is asking open-ended questions. When we ask open-ended questions, we're asking for input. And when we are asking an individual for input, they feel that sense of ownership to challenging or solving the problem. So a good question to use here is, what challenges are you seeing? And then a follow-up would be, how do you see us overcoming those challenges? It allows you to sit back, them to give input, and then mutually design how that challenge is going to be solved. Two great ways to begin to speak that language of ownership. And start small here. Switch it to how, switch it to we, get away from the must and the should, ask those open-ended questions, and then make sure that you use those we statements. It's a great way for people to feel included in the culture and in the organization. And it's a beginning way for you to communicate that. Try it on. I want to take a quick break from the episode today to talk about a couple things. The first thing, less than 40% of our listeners are subscribed to our channel. You would be doing me a huge favor if you click on that subscribe button. It helps us grow our Go Be Great community and get this podcast out to as many people as we possibly can. The second thing, are you a small business owner that is drowning in the day-to-day operations? You're delegating tasks and you're still doing all the work. You're experiencing a high turnover. Maybe you don't have the systems and processes in place that you need to run a successful business. I invite you to go over to thejohnespinosa.com, fill out the form to see if you're the right fit. Now back to the episode. The third one we're going to talk about is building trust to foster ownership. And leadership is built around trust. That's the foundation. So it makes sense that trust is part of creating this culture of ownership. Ownership thrives in an environment where people feel safe. People feel safe to express their ideas. People feel safe to come to you with challenges. And it's important that we maintain that environment. Everybody has a bad day. There's a couple times that, you're bringing with you into the office maybe a fight that you just had, or an argument, or a flat tire, or the traffic was heavy on the way to work, and somebody comes into your office first thing in the morning and they want to share an idea. They want to bring to you something that they feel needs improvement. And what do? You bite their head off because you've had a bad morning. Do you think that individual feels safe to bring you more ideas in the future? Probably not. So here what we want to focus on is empowering with authority. And I always like to give team members my decision-making framework and then allow them to make decisions within that framework. I have two things that I need to make the decision on. If the decision impacts the budget, they need to bring it to me. If the decision needs a final approval to go up or out of the organization, they need to bring it to me. Outside of those two things, that's my decision framework. I will back them up when they make that decision, right, wrong, or indifferent. I just had a program review and I reminded my team about my decision framework and the fact that I would back them up, right, wrong, or indifferent of their decision. Do you think that installed trust? Do you think that empowered them to go make the decision? If you are the single point of failure in your organization, you got to make all the decisions, you will never be able to step away. So let's create a decision framework for you that will allow you to empower others to make decisions, but still keep you in the loop when those important decisions that you need to make come about. Another great way here is having those check-ins that are focused on growth. So again, building this culture of ownership, fostering this culture of ownership is important when we have those one-on-one conversations. A lot of times I like to ask, what roadblocks are in the way? What's preventing you from really taking ownership of this project or of this task or, whatever that you may have signed them work, and you can see they're hesitant? You may come to find out that they're unfamiliar with the topic. You may come to find out that they're afraid to make a decision because the last decision they made didn't go so well. That is your opportunity to coach and mentor that particular individual. Again, to foster that culture of ownership. And it will duplicate. They will go out and they will tell whoever's on their team, hey, John supports us. We can make the decision and John will support that decision. That's a lot different than we need to go to John about this. We need to invite John into the meeting. John needs to hear about this. Because every time John is used, that's taking away time that I could be spending creating future revenue, that I could be spending coaching and mentoring, when really it just comes down to empowering our employees and our team to go make decisions. So again, these three things, when we talk about why accountability isn't enough, we also have to instill that sense of ownership. One, understand the gap. Understand the gap between ownership and accountability. Two, we need to speak the language. We need to walk the talk of ownership. And then three, building trust and why that is important to fostering a culture of ownership. So remember, accountability sets expectations. Ownership instills excellence. I believe in you. Go be great. Talk to everyone later. Bye-bye. If you like what you're hearing, do us a favor. Click on that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up or leave a comment. That lets us know that what we are putting out benefits you. If you want additional information or resources or learn how to work with me, head on over to thejohnespinosa.com, because when we become better versions of ourselves, it helps us get others to where they're going. Go be great. Talk to everyone later.